was in college, I had a job in Syracuse, where I went to school, in the bad part of town. And one night I got off work about 10 o'clock, and I was driving home, and in my headlights, I saw a group of people in the road, and then most of them moved off. They ran off. But one person stayed in the road, lying in the road. So I pulled off, and I stopped, and the car behind me stopped, and there was a woman lying in the road, and she was awake, she was conscious, and she was yelling, actually, and there was a small pool of blood that was forming under her leg. She said that she'd been stabbed in the leg. So I went back to my car and got a towel, and I held the towel under her leg, and the woman with me and I started talking to her, and neighbors were coming out, and people called the police. We were just kind of talking with her, and the woman that was on the ground kept trying to get up. We're like, no, you need to lie down on the ground. This is not a fatal thing, but it's not good. And she kept repeating herself and saying the same things over and over again, and kept trying to get up. And I found out later, when the police got there, that she was high. She was on crack. And when you're on crack, you repeat yourself over and over. So there you go. You learned something today. And she would not stay put on the ground. And so after a few minutes, this kind of got frustrated. And the woman that had pulled off behind me said, well, if she doesn't want help, I'm not going to help her. And got in her car and drove off. And I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten what happened, but I've never forgotten her response. That yes, she was willing to stop. Yes, she was willing to help. But how far do you go? I mean, how far do you go in helping someone? How do you decide when to help and when not to help? You know, this is a question that's being asked in this country right now because Congress is talking about, you know, healthcare reform and who do we give it to and who do we not give it to? Should we give it to anybody? You know, it's a debate, and it's something that we all ask ourselves all the time. Who do we help? How do we help? And as we're talking about what it means to follow Jesus, what a disciple does, this is one of the questions that we have to ask. Because that's what he talks about. He talks about helping people, loving people, serving people. Well, okay, how? Who? When? Where? For how long? How do we do this? How do we help? So that's what we're talking about today. As our topic is, what does a disciple do? And to get at that, I want to introduce the small group discussion for this week, which begins with this story. And this is a story that you maybe heard before, but I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to picture it. I'm going to read it for you, and I'm going to try and paint a picture for you. So I want you to imagine this happening. And I'll have a time of silence afterwards when you hear the chimes come back to worship. In the middle of the day, on a road through the wilderness in Israel. You're on this road, and it's a road that you know is dangerous. So you stay away from it. When you're caring for the livestock from your family, you make sure and keep them far away from this road. But today, you can see it in the distance. And you watch as a man comes down the road. And he looks fairly well off. He's obviously going somewhere, going to Jericho most likely. The road goes from Jerusalem to Jericho. And he's traveling along it, and you watch as he travels. Suddenly, out of the bushes, you had no idea they were there. All around him come robbers. And they jump him, and they start to beat him. And they take off his clothes, his nice clothes. And they steal his money. And then they beat him a few more times. And until he can barely move. And they just leave him there, lying along the road. And you look up to see if there's anyone nearby who could help. And sure enough, coming around the corner as the bandits disappear, is another man. And you can see the clothes he's wearing. This is a priest. This is a Jewish priest. It's a Jewish man who's been beaten. And the priest comes along and he sees the man lying there and he stops. He looks at him. And then he looks in the woods to either side. And then he runs over to the other side of the road from the man who's been hurt, and he runs past him, looking to the woods constantly, and then he's gone. And you look again, and down the road now, coming another man. And this man is dressed like an assistant, somebody who would work in the temple, not a priest, but one of his helpers. And he comes along, and he sees the man, and he stops. He looks closer. And he walks closer, and closer still until he's right next to him, looking at him. But then he too looks to the side, and he goes across the road, and he walks on. And you look up again, and now down the road, you see someone else coming. And you feel your stomach turn to knots as you recognize this is a Samaritan. This isn't going to be good. Samaritans, Jews, hated enemies, and the Samaritan comes along, and he stops when he sees the man. Only he runs up to him. He kneels beside him, and he reaches into a sack that he has, and he draws out a cloth and he pours water on it, and he starts to clean his wounds and puts some lotion on it. And he bandages the man up. And then he takes the man, and then he puts him on the donkey that he had been leading, gently setting him on it. And on the donkey, they move quickly down the road to an inn that you can see way off. And you decide you want to find out what happened to this man. So you go to him, to the inn rather, the next day. You take your animals there and you ask the innkeeper, what happened? The innkeeper said, well, the man is still here. That Samaritan who came with him gave me 2 pieces of silver. Told me to take care of him. And he said, if the bill runs higher, pay the difference the next time I am here.